is with you, Macumazahn, who are our captain." I set out the situation to Robertson and Hans as briefly as I could, showing that there was a chance of life if we ran, but so far as I could see, none if we stayed. "Go if you like, Quatermain," answered the captain, "but I shall stop and die here, for since my girl is gone, I think I'm better dead." I motioned to Hans to speak. "Baas," he answered, "the Great Medicine is here with us upon the earth and your reverend father, the Predikant, is with us in the sky, so I think we had better stop here and do what we can, especially as I do not want to see those reeds any more at present." "So do I said briefly, giving no reasons. So we made ready for the next attack, which we knew would be the last, strengthening our little wall and dragging the dead Amahagger up against it as an added protection. As we were thus engaged, the sun rose and in its first beams some miles away on the opposite slopes of the mountain, looking tiny against the black background of the precipice, we saw a party of men creeping forward. Lifting my glasses I studied it and perceived that in its midst was a litter. "There goes your daughter," I said and handed the glasses to Robertson. "Oh my God," he answered, "those villains have outwitted us after all." Another minute and the litter, or rather the chair with its escort, had vanished into the shadow of the great cliffs, probably up some pass which we could not see. Next moment our thoughts were otherwise engaged, since from various symptoms we gathered that the attack was about to be renewed. Spears, upon which shone the light of the rising sun, appeared above the edge of the ground fold that I have mentioned, which to the east increased to a deep, bush-clad ravine. Also there were voices as of leaders encouraging their men to a desperate effort. "They are coming," I said to Robertson. "Yes," he answered, "they are coming and we are going. It's a queer end to the thing we call life, isn't it, Quatermain? And hang it all, I wonder what's beyond. Not much for me, I expect, but whatever it is could scarcely be worse than what I've gone through here below in one way and another." "There's hope for all of us," I replied as cheerfully as I could, for the man's deep depression disturbed me. "Mayhap, Quatermain, for who knows the infinite mercy of whatever made us as we are. My old mother used to preach of it and I remember her words now. But in my case I expect it will stop at hope or sleep, and if it wasn't for Inez I'd not mind so much, for I tell you I've had enough of the world and life. Look, there's one of them. Take that, you black devil," and lifting his rifle he aimed and fired at an Amahagger who appeared upon the edge of the fold of ground. What is more, he hit him, for I saw the man double up and fall backwards. Then the game began afresh, for the cannibals, I suppose they were cannibals like their brethren, crept out of shelter, advancing on their stomachs or their hands and knees, so as to offer a smaller mark, and dragging between them a long and slender tree trunk, with which clearly they intended to batter down our wall. Of course I blazed away at them, pretty carefully too, for I was determined that what I believed to be the last exercise of the gift of shooting that has been given to me should prove a record. Therefore I selected my men and even where I would hit them, and as subsequent examination showed, I made no mistakes in the 7 or 8 shots that I fired. But all the while, like poor Captain Robertson, I was thinking of other things, namely where I was bound for presently and if I should meet certain folks there, and what was the meaning of this show called life, which unless it leads somewhere, according to my judgment, has none at all. Until these questions were solved, however, my duty was to kill as many of those ruffians as I could, and this I did with finish and dispatch. Robertson and Hans were firing also, with more or less success, but there were too many to be stopped by our 3 rifles. Still they came on till at length their fierce faces were within a few yards of our little parapet and Umslopogaas had lifted his great axe to give them greeting. They paused a moment before making their final rush, and so did we to slip in fresh cartridges. "Die well, Hans," I said, "and if you get there first, wait for me on the other side." "Yes, Baas, I always meant to do that, though not yet. We are not going to die this time, Baas. Those who have the Great Medicine don't die. It is the others who die, like that fellow," and he pointed to an Amahagger who went reeling round and round with a bullet from his Winchester through the middle, for he had fired in the midst of his remarks. "Curse, I mean bless the Great Medicine," I said as I lifted my rifle to my shoulder. At that moment all those Amahagger, there were about 60 of them left, became seized with a certain perturbation. They stood still, they stared towards the fold of ground out of which they had emerged, they called to each other words which I did not catch, and then they turned to run. Umslopogaas saw, and with a leader's instinct acted. Springing over the parapet, followed by his remaining Zulus of the Axe, he leapt upon them with a roar. Down they went before Inkosikaas like corn before a sickle. The thing was marvellous to see. It was like the charge of a leopard. So swift was the rush and so lightning like were the strokes, or rather the pecks of that flashing axe. For now he was tapping at their heads or spines with a gouge like point upon its back. Nor were these the only victims, for those brave followers of his also did their part. In a minute all who remained upon their feet of the Amahagger were in full flight, vanishing this way and that among the trees. Hans fired a parting shot after the last of them, then sat down upon a stone and finding his corn-cob pipe proceeded to fill it. "The Great Medicine, Baas," he began sententiously, "or perhaps your reverend father, the Predikant." Here he paused and pointed doubtfully with the bowl of the pipe towards the fold in the ground, adding, "Here it is, but I think it must be your reverend father, not the Great Medicine. Yes, the Predikant himself, returned from heaven, the place of fires." Looking vaguely in the direction he indicated, for I could not conceive what he meant, and thought that the excitement must have made him mad, I perceived a venerable old man with a long white beard and clothed in a flowing garment also white, who reminded me of Father Christmas at a child's party, walking towards us and radiating benignancy. Also behind him I perceived a whole forest of spear points emerging from the gully. He seemed to take it for granted that we should not shoot him, for he came on quite unconcerned, carefully picking his way among the corpses. When he was near enough, he stopped and said in a kind of Arabic which I could understand, "I greet you strangers in the name of her I serve. I see that I am just in time, but this does not surprise me, since she said it would be so. You seem to have done very well with these dogs," and he prodded a dead Amahagger with his sandalled foot. "Yes, very well indeed. You must be great warriors." Then he paused and we stared at each other. End of chapter 10 of She and Allan by H. Rider Haggard. Read by Lars Rolander.